doing Tet Zayin Amavez in Moed Katan. Today's daf Tet Zayin Amavez is going to be on one main topic of halacha, Nezifa. It's a little bit less than excommunication. It's about scorn or a rebuke from a rabbi, and it's less impactful than excommunication without all the restrictions, but it lasts for a certain amount of time. The person should be out of the public atmosphere and should be distanced from other people. And the Gemara is going to give lots of stories about it, and there's a little bit of a difference between Eretz Yisrael and Bavel, and we're going to see two stories that seem to question the notion that it should be 7 days, only 7 days in Israel, and we're going to come out that there's a difference between the Nasi, the chief rabbi, when he makes a Nezifa, and then we're going to discuss several stories that prove the point. 3 stories, Mar Ukva, a specific woman, and Zutra Bartuvi, about 1 day Nezifa in Bavel. The Gemara begins, Taner Rabbanan, Ein Nidui Pacham Yishloshim Yom. The rabbis taught that a Nidui in excommunication is no less than 30 days. In Nezifa Pacham Zayin Yamim. A rebuke of a person lasts no less than 7 days. Al Bishay Raya Ladavar, even though there's no proof for the matter, Zecher Ladavar, there is a allusion to this in the Torah. Shnei Amar, Avia Yerok Yirak B'Vanel. Moshe says if a father spat in the face of a child, shouldn't they be closed for 7 days? Shouldn't they be away from other people to feel ashamed of what they did wrong, to be rebuked? The same applies to when a rabbi has Nezifa, has a rebuking, a scorning of a particular person for something they did wrong. Amar Rav Chizda is speaking from Bavel, and he's saying if you have Nezifa Nidoi by Bavel, that's the equivalent of the Nezifa of Eretz Yisrael and the Nezifa Shalahen. The Nezifa did who? The Nezifa of Eretz Yisrael of them did who? Shiva is considered 7 days. Okay, so our Nidois are not as serious as their Nidoi, and our Nezifa is not as serious as theirs. But you see that their Nezifa is 7 days. The Gemara says too low. Is it only 7 days? No more? Rebbe Shimon Rebbe. We have a story with Rebbe Shimon, the son of Rebbe, and Bar Kafra. Aviyati v'kagarsi, that 2 rabbis were learning together, Rebbe Shimon and Bar Kafra. Kasha Lishmaita, they had a difficulty learning something. Amrlei, Rebbe Shimon Bar Kafra, Rebbe Shimon turned to Bar Kafra and he said, this is a type of matter that we should really inquire Rebbe to figure out what's going on, to understand. Amrlei Bar Kafra, the Rebbe Shimon, my Rebbe, I'm Rebbe Dovid. He was making fun of him and he said, what, there's only one teacher in the world, Rebbe, that you can go and ask? What's Rebbe really going to say about the matter? We don't need him, we can figure it out. Rabbi Shimon went to his father, who was Rebbe, and he said over the story with Bar Kafra, and Ikbid, he got upset. But Rebbe was upset with what Bar Kafra said, mocking the fact that they had a difficult time asking, and Bar Kafra was mocking, should we really go hear what Rebbe said? Bar Kafra came to appear in front of Rebbe. Bar Kafra, says Rebbe, Bar Kafra, I don't recognize you ever. I don't know who you are. Get out of here. And that type of statement made Bar Kafra realize, literally he realized that he had something in it on him. He felt that he really got upset with him. And therefore, he felt to take upon himself and Nezifuta, this scorning, this rebuke from Rebbe for 30 days. And he didn't go in public, he wasn't socially interacting with everybody else. Another story, the same vein, and we're going to address the question of why was it only 7 days, but over here it seems, why was it 30 days Bar Kafra took, when we said before, Nezifa is 7 days in Eretz Yisrael, and Rebbe's story is in Eretz Yisrael. So one time Rebbe made a gezerah, he said a prohibition, no one should teach students in public, in the shuk, in the marketplace. My darash, what was his reason for this? What was his explanation from the pasuk for this? Your hidden thighs are like jewels. The pasuk in Shir Shirim, so it's referring to Torah. Your Torah should be hidden. My yerach was hidden, just like the thigh is a matter that's always supposed to be hidden. So too, says Rabbi, after Torah, so the Torah is always supposed to be hidden. One time it happened that, not following the words of Rebbe Chia brazenly went into the marketplace and taught 2 of his nephews, L'Rab, he taught them in the public. Shama Rebbe got upset. Rebbe Chia came and visited him on Malay. Iyaya mi korel b'chutz. He was making fun of his name. Instead of calling him Chi, he called him Iyaya, and he said, "Is somebody calling you from outside?" In other words, I don't really want to talk to you right now. He was giving him rebuke, and therefore Yada the Nakat, he was aware that really Rebbe was upset, and Nakat milta b'daite, and he had something on him, and therefore he was going to have to consider himself in Nezifa, and therefore not in Nezifa, and therefore Rabbi Chia sequestered himself for 30 days to take this rebuke upon himself. Beyond Tlatin, on the 30th day, they sent him a message from Rebbe's house, come back. Hadr, Shalach, he sent him a second message the same day, beyond Delolati, don't come today. Mikara, my sabr. What's going on? Why did Rebbe originally say yes, and then he says no? Mikara, originally sabr, Mixayam Kukuli, thought that the 30th day, even part of the day, is considered like the whole day, and therefore, even if he had Nezifuta, a rebuke for part of the day, that already covers observing it the entire day. And then we can come on the 30th day, as long as it's been 1 minute into the day. And the Sof Savar, later he thought, by Nezifuta rebuke, we don't apply the rule of part of the day as like a whole day, and therefore on the last day he had to fill out the full day before he was able to come back. The Sof, then Rabbi Chia actually did appear on the 30th day. Amarle, Mayatit, why'd you come? Amarle, Shalchli, you told Shalchli Mar, because my master, Rebbe, you told me to come, delayed to come. But I sent you a message, a second message, don't come. I only saw the first message, I didn't see the second message. When Hashem likes a person, so even his enemies are going to make peace with him. That's how you see Rebbe was saying about Rabbi Chia that Hashem really liked him, and therefore he did well, even though he came on the 30th day, even though he wasn't supposed to. Hashem made so that there was peace, and Rebbe accepted. My time of Marach. And then he interrogates him. Exactly, why did you teach your nephews in public? I told you not to. You're not supposed to teach in public. It says in the pasuk that you're supposed to sing about the wisdom of Torah in public. He says, wait a minute. If you learn something once, you don't learn twice. And if you learn twice, you don't learn 3 times. If you learn 3 times, you don't learn it properly without the explanation. When it says you're supposed to sing about wisdom, what that means, it means like Rava. It says, Rava explained, Rava says any person who learns Torah privately, the Torah announces about him in public, meaning he'll be known for his Torah learning, but he's supposed to learn Torah in private, not supposed to learn it in public. It says in the pasuk also that I didn't speak originally in private. In other words, Torah was taught in public. So what's wrong with teaching in public? Says the Gemara, that's only appropriate at certain times. That's only considered appropriate when they used to have certain gatherings of Torah before the Tishrei and before the Nisan, before the particular holidays of the year, and those are the correct times to have very public Torah gatherings. Rabbi Chia, what would Rabbi Chia do with the pasuk that Rabbi learned to show that you're not supposed to teach Torah in public? He said those are activities that are supposed to be in private. It's the tzedakah that's supposed to be private, and chesed for other people, not to embarrass people. Those should always be done privately. But anyway, from these 2 stories, you see the following. Alma, you can infer, Nezifa did who? Tlatin Yomin. You see from here that Nezifa in these 2 stories are considered 30 days, not 7. It says the Gemara, no, Nezifa, Nasi, Shiny. It's actually different when we're talking about the Nasi, and for him, when the Nasi, the chief rabbi, puts on Nezifa, you're going to have to keep 30 days, not like the regular Nezifa. Okay, new point about Nezifa, the dawn of Bavel. The Nezifa we said before is going to be less than Nezifa and Eretz. Nezifa and Eretz was 7 days. And here it says the Gemara Nezifa Didan, how long is Nezifa of Bavel? 1 day. We have 3 stories to prove this point and discuss it. And then tangent. Shmuel Amar Ukva Yatvi, when Shmuel Amar Ukva would learn, Garash Shmaite, Haviyat Mar Ukva Kamei Shmuel. Whenever they would learn, teach Torah, so Mar Ukva would give a lot of honor to his teacher, Shmuel, and sit in front of him, in front of him, 4 amos away from him, to give him space and to show that he honored him very much and wanted to hear what he had to say. However, when they were in court and there was a Beis Din case and they were sitting as judges, Mar Ukva would be the head judge. And Shmuel would wait to walk home with him. Shmuel would wait for Mar Ukva. And he would sit in front of him and listen to Mar Ukva be the judge. Giving him space of 4 amos. They made a place for Mar Ukva that was a place for him to listen to Shmuel teach. And he would sit upon that area. And even when he was a judge, he would sit on a lower place so he could hear the words of Shmuel very well. In other words, they would prepare for him a place for Mar Ukva to sit on Besifta on a mat. This way he could sit on. This way he would hear the words of Shmuel very well. Even when he was a judge, he still had tremendous respect for his teacher Shmuel, even though he was the actual head judge. Every day, at the end of the day, Mar Ukva would walk home with Shmuel and talk with him. Until he got to his house, to his host, but a place where he would stay. One day that Mar Ukva was the judge and he was dealing with the case, he got very carried up with the case. Shmuel was waiting for him, and he got so caught up that Mar Ukva didn't remember to walk home with Shmuel, and Shmuel was following him because Mar Ukva was just walking and pacing and not talking to Shmuel, not greeting him at all. When Shmuel got to his house, isn't things not clear to you? Don't you get what you're doing? You're making me walk behind you. You didn't talk to me today. Let me free of your quarrel. Meaning, you're all preoccupied with some case. You didn't even say hello to me. He realized he had something in on him. He was upset with him. He took rebuke for 1 day. You see over here, Nezifa in Bavel is 1 day. That's what Mar Ukva took upon himself, only 1 day in Nezifa. A story with a woman. She was sitting. A woman was sitting by the road. Her foot was stretched out. She was taking off and the barley shells. And there was a person, a rabbi, that was walking by her. And she didn't stand. She didn't make herself respectful of him. She didn't pick up her feet so he could walk. The rabbi said, "Oh, how chutzpahdik, how disrespectful is this woman?" So this woman felt bad. She didn't realize what she did until afterwards. Then she felt bad. And she went to Rav Nachman and said, she asked, "What should I do?" And Rav Nachman said, "Did the rabbi say you're in excommunication? Shmaita? Shamta, rather. The highest level of excommunication as over nidui?" We said, "Amrlei lo." No, he didn't say that. Amrlei zilnehegen nezifuta chad yoma benafshich. So Rav said, "Don't worry. This is not excommunication. It's just rebuke. The rabbi wanted to rebuke you. So take some rebuke for 1 day." Zutra Bartovia Havika Pasik Sidra Kamed Rav Yehuda. A third story, and that Zutra Bartovia was the person who would prepare the parshas, prepare the stories, the psukim in front of Rav Yehuda. Once he was preparing a pasuk in Shmuel Beis, Parashas Gimel, and he said, these are the words of Dovid, the last words, last of his prophecies. So he asked Rav Yehuda, what exactly does this refer to? These are later words implying their earlier words. Which words are we talking about? Which are the earlier words? Velo Amrlei, Velo Midi. Rav Yehuda had no answer. And he again repeated his question. He said, if you're telling me there's the last words, then it must be that there's earlier words. Rishon Mahi, what are the earlier ones? Amrlei, my daitach. Rav Yehuda now got upset with Zutra Bartovi. He said, what are you thinking? Who? You keep on asking and insisting on this. It seems like if you think that anybody that doesn't know how to explain this pasuk, they're not a Gaber Rabba, they're not a great person. And that's why you keep insisting on that I have to answer your question. I don't know the answer. That's not a question that such a Talmud Chacham always needs to have the answer to every particular question. Zutra understood that he got rebuked by Rav Yehuda, and therefore he took upon himself, he imposed upon himself this rebuke for 1 day. Datan Allah, our mind is upon this matter, upon this in plural, in feminine, Allah. Miha, upon these words we're dwelling, let's consider them, and think about what exactly does the pasuk mean. The later words of Dovid imply there are earlier words. Which ones are we talking about? Rishonim Mahi, which are the earlier words? David La Hashem and Bayom Etziel Hashem Otam Mikaf Kol Evav Mikaf Shaul. The parak in Tehillim that starts like this, parak line that says David said a song to Hashem, being saved from his enemies and saved from Shaul. David, Shirat Omer al Mapatosh Shaul. David, what are you saying songs to HaKadosh Baruch Hu about songs to me about Shaul's demise, that he fell? Shaul, who David? If you would have instead been Shaul and he would have been David, then I would destroy many of Davids in front of him. In other words, Rashi's the way to explain it is just this is totally a mazel. It was that Shaul had the misfortune of not being the king forever, and you are going to be the king and you have a forever dynasty that's going to follow after you. But really, Shaul had the better midos, and you shouldn't be criticizing him. David said, I erred, and I'm going to sing about that fact, that I made a mistake. Asher sar la Hashem al divrei Kush ben Yamini, upon the mistake I made about Kush. V'chi Kushmo, who is Kush? Was Kush his name? Hello, Shaul Shmo. His name in fact was Shaul, not Kush. Ella, we explain why was he called Kush. Ma Kushim mishuna ba'oru. Just like the people from Kush have a strange complexion by their skin, Shaul ma'aseh mishunim. So to his actions were incredibly different than everybody else. A tremendous tzaddik. Another person we have this expression of Kush about is about Ata Omer al Odos Ha'isha Kushit. The wife of Moshe was called a Kushi. Asher Lakach, that he took. Was that really her name? Hello? Sipora Shema. Really, in fact, Moshe's wife's name was Sipora. So why was it called Kushi? She called Kushi Elama, Kushi Mishunabara. Just like the Kushi skin is totally different. Sipora Mishunabasa. She had amazing actions, and therefore she was called a Kushi because she was different than everybody else. Okay, so it's a bit of a third explanation, a third point where we have Kushi in the same vein. At Omer, we find this also by Yishma Eved Melech HaKushi, that the servant of the king Kushi heard. Well, Kushi Shmo, we're not referring to Kushi in this pasuk. Who are we referring to? Allah Sikia Shmo, we're talking about Sikia. Allah, we're referring to my Kushi Mishunba. Or Afsikia Mishunba. So the same idea we say by Sikia, it was like Kushi, they had tremendously different actions like everybody else. It was a big tzaddik. Allah Benu Kushi Matem Li Yisrael. And Amos, it says, you Jews are like Kushim to me. What does that mean? Jews are not called Kushi, so Hello Yisrael Shemon, their name is Yisrael. Elamat Kushim Mishunab, or Av Yisrael Mishunab and Nikoloma. What it means to say is the Jews are very different than the rest of the world. What does the pasuk mean? This is upon the tangent that we darshan some of the psukim in Shmuel Beis, Parak Gimel. We're going to darshan more about that. That says David is telling a speech of the Geber that's Hukam Al, the person that came upon it. What exactly this is referring? Coming upon what? Nu'um David ben Yishai came Ula Shel Tshuva. We're explaining the pasuk instead of Al, upon, but rather to mean the yoke that David took upon himself, the yoke of Tshuva. And that was one of the tremendous things that David did in his life, was to do Tshuva upon his sins. Amar Elohei Yisrael li diber Sur Yisrael Moshe ba'adam Sadik Moshe Yirat Elohim. The pasuk is saying that Hashem is speaking. Sur Yisrael, the rock of Israel, Moshe ba'adam, who rules people, Sadik and the righteous man, and also he is Moshe upon the Yira Elohim, the person who fears God. Micah Amar, why do we have all these phrases in the end of the pasuk? Hashem rules people and Sadikim. What's going on? Says the Gemara, no. It means two different phrases. So my comment, what do we mean? Elohei Yisrael. Hashem says, Lidi Be'er Sur Yisrael. Hashem says, I'm going to explain, the rock of Israel is going to explain, Ani Moshe ba'adam, I rule people, who rules me? Sadiq. Because I can make a gzera, a decree against the world, and who can mevatel my gzeros? The Sadiq. Elish Shemot Giborim, another pasuk over there, it says that these are the names of the strong ones of David. Asher LeDavid Yoshev B'Shevet. Asher Yoshev B'Shevet. These are the ones that are the mighty ones of David that are sitting in a certain place. Micah Amar Amar Rebo Hachika Amar Elishma Givor David Shalom David. We're not talking about specific people. We're talking about the mighty actions of David, which are such. Yoshev B'Shevet B'Shasha Yoshev Yeshiva. When David would sit in yeshiva, it was incredible. Well, yeshiva Gabi Karim says he wouldn't sit on anything fancy, even though he was the king of Israel. On pillows or blankets, El Gabi Karka, he would sit on the floor. When he was just a student and listened to Shir by Iri, Chaim, and his teacher was alive. His teacher would teach upon pillows and blankets. He would sit on something fancy, like a similar fancy chair. When he passed away, and then when he died, David was the one who was giving shir. But you know what he did? He gave it sitting on the floor. They said to him, "Please, David, go sit on the pillows and blankets." Look, he didn't want to do that. Hashem has made me wise. What is the explanation of that pasuk that we're continuing to be dorish to explain? Hashem says, since you minimize yourself, you've made yourself humble, incredibly humble, you're going to be like me. I'm going to make, just like I can make decrees, so too you can make decrees. When I'm going to make a decree, you can uproot it. Hashem said incredible bracha to David that he's going to be the leader of the Avos, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Who Dino Ha'atzani, this person that we're describing is Adino Ha'atzani. Now, who is that describing? It's describing David. What exactly does it mean that he was like Adino Ha'atzani? What exactly are we talking about? He acted and behaved like a worm when he was learning. That's what we're explaining means. Atzmo, that's how we darshan the pasuk over here. However, when you go to war, I am not just look at eights. So Atzani is referring to eights, but Idano is referring to he would ma'adin, he would be active, he'd make himself very humble and meek like the worm. And he used to be able to kill 800 people in the war and be successful. He used to be able to throw an arrow. David, and in one fell swoop, he'd kill 800 people. And he would be groaning and saddened over the fact that he wasn't able to kill another 200. But it says in the pasuk that when we're listening to Hashem, Hashem is giving us a bracha that we will be able to kill 1,000 with one person. Angel came out and explained to David, he was not quite so successful in being able to kill all 1,000 in one fell swoop because he had one sin on his record. These are the words for the week. The daf have to learn my time. It means what is the reason, and kihihi just like. The Amid week have two more words. Atit, that you came, or that you're coming. In this context, in the word it was Atit, my Atit, why'd you come in the past? And Allah is upon it. It usually refers to female. In our context, it was referring to some words. The takeaways for today in the halacha is to remember the numbers. We said excommunication is a minimum of 30 days. The Nezifa of a Nasi is 30 days. The Nezifa in Eretz Yisrael is 7. The Nezifa in Bavel is the lowest, 1 day. We had some agad to takeaways that Rebbe says you shouldn't teach Torah in public. David was super humble and taught on the floor. David shouldn't have criticized Shaul because it was only because of his mazel that he was more successful than Shaul.